Thirsty and 30.
Hello. Welcome. I'm too excited for this episode. I don't know why. I should not be smiling so much when we're talking about infidelity, but I am. And I am totally excited. So, welcome to episode 15 of Thirsty and 30, the chat show that's fun, informative, and friendly. And frankly, the blind leading the blind in the love space. Our goal is to navigate and translate modern love with all its complications and quirks so that you can make saner decisions. And of course, feel less lonely during these times. So, I'm Bea, your usual non-expert, and I'm extra, like I took a Red Bull today just to discuss infidelity. Hi, Shari.
Bea, you're way too excited. You can't even get your words out today. Like
I
you
know.
shot yourself with like adrenaline or something. So
Yeah.
yeah, good evening everyone and my family. I know that you guys are watching today. Hi guys.
They
What's up?
they don't watch every episode, Shari. I think
Yes,
this is a
they
particular.
watch every episode, but I think we are a complete unit today. So hello. So
Okay.
good evening, everyone, and our thirsty crowd. We're back this week with a topic that is universally practiced, universally condemned, and sometimes condoned by those that are loyal and in love. Infidelity, like what Bea said. So this topic, or shall I say, this practice, is so ingrained in Filipino culture for such a taboo subject, it is talked about with no shame, from our usual family table conversations to it being one of the most popular movie plot lines. The question here is why? Why are we so obsessed with this?
So I do have to greet again my favorite loyal viewer, my cousin who's 11 years old. Happy birthday, belated. Last
Happy
week
birthday,
you
Zach.
were not allowed, and now you're still not allowed. I don't know why you're here.
You're allowed to do that. Last week was a no-no for you, but welcome.
Okay. And then another Rachel says, "What up? Cheers to sane decisions and Red Bull." I absolutely agree. Okay, so Shai, we're not gonna waste people's time tonight and get into small talk. Usually we like, kamusta ganyan. Pero this one,
Let's
wala
get
talaga.
down to it.
Yeah, so our guest tonight doesn't really need any introductions, but because we absolutely adore her, actually there are two. We have a surprise guest. I'm
You're
really
very
happy that I'm happy that they both decided to join because they are just the most adorable, witty couple that I aspire to have. Sana may ganun. Sabi ko sa'yo, sobrang excited ako.
your color is matching your top. You're green with envy.
I am. Wow, witty. Okay.
I know.
Allow us to share a bit about both of them. I'll be doing the intro to our first guest, and then Shari will do our guest from the royal family.
Hold on, babe. I
So
have to say, take a breath. Calm down. Calm down. Oh my god. Relax.
I don't know why. Sabi nga sa akin ng kuya na yung
Mm,
kachat ko, na sabi niya I shouldn't glorify. Masyado akong excited for this episode. But I
yes.
am. I mean, I've been through this, and I think a lot of people have, and I think that's why I'm extra happy because
Yes.
I get to kind of understand the reality of it. So,
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
take a breath.
Go on.
Sorry, Jay.
And then let's please introduce our guest.
So, okay. Our guest tonight is Dr. Margie Holmes, a person who exudes humor, wit, and honesty, even if you were just stuck in an elevator with her for 5 minutes. She is so passionate about giving out straightforward information that she has written numerous books such as Life, Love, Lust, Straightforward Answers to Provocative Questions, Down to One, Depression Stories, Sexy, Saucy, Spicy, A Different Love, Being Gay in the Philippines, Buhay Single, and these are just some of the many books. I really do need to take a breath.
I know you do. So there's absolutely no doubt on why she is the leading therapist in the Philippines when it comes to sex and relationships. By the way, she is one of only 7 people to graduate magna cum laude among more than 2,000 who graduated that year. She studied psychology and public health with specializations in sex therapy and marriage counseling. Also, Bea, she is married to a very handsome man from the UK, Prince Harry's handsome uncle, Jeremy. Okay, guys, he's not really Prince Harry's handsome uncle, but he is very handsome.
He
Jeremy
could
Baer,
be.
also known as Asawa ni Dr. Holmes. They're co-columnists of Two Pronged, which has been on Rappler for 6 years. They are co-authors of 2 books, Love Triangle and Imported Love. I'm so excited to welcome Dr. Margarita Holmes and Jeremy. Oh, I'm gonna click it.
I thought,
Hello,
Hi,
welcome.
hi.
thank you for inviting us.
Oh.
Thank you
You,
for
I
agreeing.
can say one thing that I'm not Prince Harry's uncle. I'm his great uncle.
Oh,
Great.
so humble.
You could be cousins. Come on.
It's so sweet.
Okay. So, Dr. Holmes, we are so excited to have the both of you here. So we're like 2 giddy schoolgirls. Bea is like a schoolgirl on like feed or something. I don't know what's happening to her. So for our chat today, we will be discussing infidelity, and we've divided it into 2 parts. One-time cheating and long-time cheaters. So first, we usually like to start with an icebreaker, but today we'll start with like quick fire questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll start with that. But I guess like before we get into the quick fire questions, I do want to ask, what is your secret to your marriage? Like the two of you. Because I can't like, when you see 2 people that are just like they feed off each other, you both have that. And I'm always so curious when I meet couples, like what makes it work? How about the two?
I would say that 2 things. Firstly, we both had a great deal of experience before we got married at marriages that didn't work. So that was one thing. And the other thing is we keep it a secret.
Oh,
Oh, so we have to go through our own marriages first, Bea, and then
Yeah.
eventually we'll find the marriage that sticks.
I can't even get one. I can't even get one nailed down.
ay, naku naman, if you're only 30, or are you 30? Anyway, that's so
31 soon. Because of COVID, it speed up the
30.
process.
Technically, we're 29. I don't count this year because nothing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we got married, I was 52. Jeremy was
57.
57. Of course, it was my 4th marriage and his 2nd. And that's why it took so. But still, I was 52, you were 57.
Yeah.
And now we're in our 70s.
And now maybe we shouldn't tell them that because then they won't buy our books. Anyway,
You look very hip to us. Very hip.
thank you.
Okay, so Bea, our quick fire questions.
Okay, sorry. I'm too in awe of this. Like, I don't even know why I can't speak. But okay, let's start. Okay, true or false? We have a common, like a couple of cheating sayings.
Cheating sayings, like cliches.
Yeah, and we just want to know what you both think. So the first is, I think this is very common. Once a cheater, always a cheater.
True
Not
or false?
necessarily.
No.
Likely, but not necessarily.
Okay, no.
Okay.
Okay. Second, all men cheat.
No.
No.
Really?
I think to make palakas to me.
I don't think St. Joseph cheated.
Oh.
Oh, so it's very special men.
Okay.
We are going back a long way to find somebody who didn't cheat.
Yeah, I know. You have to
I
go
know,
all the way
right?
back.
You didn't even say present company excluded. Aha! Now that I know. Carry
Okay,
on.
this one is inspired by, not really inspired, like just because of COVID and a lot of the like AIDS as well. Cheating is now can be considered attempted murder.
Oh, that's very interesting.
This is from my dad. Thank you, Dad.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. I wouldn't even put attempted.
It is. It is.
Attempted murder, yeah.
Well, if the person dies, yes.
No, but even, it could murder your relationship. It could murder your trust in women or men. But
Yeah.
anyway, okay.
But what about if nobody knows about it?
Oh, so it can murder you and your
Your soul.
integrity, which is
Okay.
important. Okay.
Men cheat more than women.
True or false?
Apparently not. According
Really?
to studies that I've read recently.
Are those studies written by men only?
Darling. Well,
These are studies that are purely by transgenders.
Not woke again. He's not woke again. Anyway, no, the latest research I read, which is done by the University of Chicago, which is supposed to be well respected in the sense that it followed the Kinsey study. So, a large number of men and women, large sample, and unlike the Kinsey studies, which only focused on white men and women, I think they took pains to make it a more diversified culture, or the question, their subjects had diversity. At any rate, and it still said that men cheated more than women, but women were starting to cheat more. Not that I think this is a good thing or a bad thing. Now, 25% of women admitted to cheating in that study.
And the men?
And the men, I think it was 50%. I think. I'm not sure about the men. It was the women that really got me.
Yeah. Okay, this one. It's 100% the cheater's fault.
No. Or
Agreed.
not necessarily.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
I know who used to cheat them before. Anyway.
It's only 10% the cheater's fault.
Okay, people generally don't cheat when they are in good relationships.
Yeah.
I disagree. Alas, no.
Okay.
That's interesting.
I better.
Last
I
but
like
not
this one. I like
Shari,
this one.
take this one away. Take this one away.
Better to be occasionally cheated than perpetually suspicious.
False dichotomy.
You mean what can be in between that? Or
Yeah. It doesn't have to be just one or the other. There are other possibilities.
Very interesting. Naku, I will follow him. Yeah, there might be eternally suspicious is pretty bad. But you're saying occasionally cheated is that you find out that he cheated or she cheated on you?
I guess you have an acceptance that you're occasionally cheated on versus you're just so
suspicious. Oh,
suspicious all the time.
Yeah, I would leave with
I
either.
know. I'd be like, I'll be celibate, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much for answering those quick fire questions. And I think you've consoled a lot of people because these are questions, like these are things that we always hear. So we do have an anonymous caller. So just to give you a bit of background, we've been working on this episode for about 2 months. I really wanted to know the mind of a cheater. And so I was betting with Shari that I could find a cheater. And she said,
she did.
yeah.
I was so impressed.
Yeah, so we do have an anonymous caller. Unfortunately, he didn't want to show his complete identity, which is fine. But we want to get everyone to visualize this. He is Euro-Asian, and I have to say, we didn't tell him yet, but he is pretty good looking. And he seems to be a very nice guy. And so for tonight, his name is Luca, and he's also got a great voice to accompany it. I haven't
Yeah.
even told him. So
We did tell him he was handsome. Our first Zoom call with him. You were expecting like some random person, and then he removed his face mask, and Baer there was like, "Ay, Pogi."
so we haven't told him. So sorry. Please make sure your camera's off because
Yeah.
I cannot control your camera.
Oh, Baer, look, you have a little fan here. So down to earth and charming.
You mean loka loka? I think that's more of what you're trying to say, but thank you. So hi Luca.
Hello. Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Oh,
Sorry,
thank you for the thank you so much for the introduction.
Sorry.
Yes, yeah.
Can you, please share your experience with us.
Okay. I mean, are we just exactly what happened from when it happened until I confessed?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
whole works, please.
All right.
Whatever you told Bea and I, just give us a quick summary of it,
Sure.
and let's ask our professionals for some advice.
Okay. Yeah. So I think this is eight years ago. I was with my ex. Let's call her. Can we just call her Sarah? I don't like referring to someone as an ex, But Sarah and I we had been dating for a long time, since high school, and we broke up for a little bit and went into college together. And she had left the country, and a friend of hers was throwing a house party, which of course I was invited to. We had a lot of the same friends, right? And I don't remember much. All I remember was just taking a bunch of shots, too much drink that I can handle. Party ended, people left, and I left. And this is one of the biggest parts that bothers me so much, is that when I went back, I was close to my apartment. That's what I remember. And the next thing I remember was I was, kicking and pushing on my skateboard back to her house. And I remember being so drunk. I remember falling so many times, but I was just persistent. And looking back, it was like, I don't remember. There was just so many potholes of these details of like, what was my intention of going back? I can't really recall if I got a text message from her or I left something behind. I just remember I was on my way back. No one was there. It was just her and me, and we talked for a little bit. And then I remember waking up next to her, and our, clothes were off, and I knew what had happened. It was like a really slow shutter speed photo of sex, just super blurry. I waited for her to wake up. I think that was like one of like the most weirdest, like time just froze. I just waited for her to wake up. I didn't know what kind of clarity I was going to gain from her, but that was it. She woke up, we looked at each other, and I remember we weren't really in the same frequency. It was very casual for her, and for me, I was just like, oh, wow, okay, I can't really, we can't talk about this. You're not the person I should talk to. That afternoon, I got a call from Kelsey. Oh, well, it's okay. Kelsey, you're not listening. But Kelsey is her roommate, and she gives me this, gives me this ultimatum of telling
your girl
Sarah to tell Sarah that day, or she'll tell her. And I had to beg Kelsey, and Kelsey, she thought she was close to Sarah, as she thought she was much closer to her than she actually was, and I think this was like her way in. But anyways, I begged for her to wait. I will pick her up from the airport, and I would tell her. Picking her up was just like a 2 days later, and I remember I don't recall much between that time, but on my way there, it was like time warp. I just ended up in front of SFO. about like 20 minutes, she's just waiting for her luggage, and I just started crying. But like, I didn't cry, any point after waking up from that morning, but I just started crying so much. And I think that's one of the problems that I deal with a lot, is when I process something, traumatic or something like that. I tend to do it all in one shot. So I just started crying so much, and I remember having this goal of like, be as composed as possible and tell her without, guiding this conversations with my tears or anything. Like, I didn't want to look kawawa. I didn't want to look, I just wanted to tell her. She got in the car. My eyes were puffy, and I remember she thought that my grandparents had passed. So that became much harder to tell her.
You're like, yeah.
No.
We drove
They're
away
alive.
from SFO. I told her to wait. I told her we were gonna park first parking lot we see. We're gonna get in. We're gonna get in, and I'll tell you. And 5 minutes down the road, there's a parking lot. Park right outside, and I tell her in the car, and she, got out of the car, getting air, and I remember her just yelling. I had slammed the door, so she was yelling something. Got out of the car, met her in the trunk side of the car, and I remember she grabbed my balls really hard, really, really hard. And I do remember this was in front of a mall, and there were people. I don't know if anyone looked or whatever, but anyways, besides the point. Oh, by the way, that grabbing of my balls has nothing to do with her character. She's really a great person. Okay, that's not a thing, right? Yeah, because you might think like, damn, she's that kind of person. No, not at all.
No, I would do the same.
I would do the same. Exactly. I was like,
I would do the same.
sounds like a normal thing to do.
I think so. Yeah, I'll take it like the standard reaction.
Yeah.
So that was it, and I remember, we tried to fix things, and I was game in the very beginning, but it was short lived. I think like not even a week later, I started feeling like, because I don't know if it was a fear of like, I don't want to have to wait and dig myself out of this grudge that you're gonna have, or I just hate this. I hate what happened. And you're a part of that picture, and it's terrible to say, you know what I mean? But like, she didn't make my choices, but in some way it was like a reflection of what had happened and everything. And I don't know. I just remember there was a majority of that time where we're trying to rebuild this relationship. It was really me maybe sabotaging it or really calling it an end. And that's what happened. I think we reached the point where we both realized, you know what, this is not gonna, we can't put this behind us. And so that was it. And then, talking about it now, it's not really like conquering this experience or anything like that. My biggest problem is that there's so many little details of my intentions that I can't map out anymore. I can't remember why I turned around, because that started it all, but I was just skated back. And that bugs me, because that's the reason. But I'm not looking for an excuse. I'm just trying to like have this sort of clarity, but it's okay.
So Luca, though, like you mentioned to us in the pre-interview that you kind of, because of this experience of yours, you kind of struggled with your relationships after that, right? So what exactly do you mean by that, or what questions do you have in relation to how you can move forward with your relationships?
Right. It wasn't much as it was really. It was like walking on eggshells, I didn't know how to. Okay, so it's like I called that love. There was a point where I felt it. It's ride or die, baby, type of thing, right? And and at the time we were living in the middle of nowhere. It was like the most romantic place, And so there was no intention of cheating. There was no intention of deceiving her or anything. But the thing is, I used love and I dropped that so hard. And so after that, it was this like, what? I mean, like, how do I define this? Like, what gears in my body is going to tell me that this is going to really be it? Like, how can I do that to love? Yes, I know I did that to her, but,
Luca,
yeah, oh yeah.
I think a lot of, what I find very interesting about your story is that you shared something that happened quite a long time ago, right? And it still feels like when you're telling us, it's very fresh. Dr. Margie and Jeremy, do you have anything that you
Advice.
can advise for him? And kind of, like this guy seems like a really nice guy, and I actually want him to like move on from this, because like what we call him is like he's got such a great conscience about this, like he's aware of it. What do
Mhm.
you think for people that have cheated once and they
And want
want to have
to
move
move
on?
forward and get over the guilt.
Yeah.
I think it's perfectly natural to feel guilt, and I think it's perfectly natural to think, is it going to happen again when I'm in a subsequent relationship? And there's certainly no way that you can say it isn't going to happen again. And this is what is so undermining. I mean, my personal view is that you only get out of this rut if you get into a relationship where you really, really feel that you've got so much to lose if you screw up, but you don't screw up. And it's sad to say that we respond to hardship much better than to kindness or to anything else. If somebody says, I'm going to hit you really, really hard if you do something, it's not very likely that you're going to do it. If somebody say to you, I'll give you a sweetie if you don't do it, or a strawberry gatto or whatever it is, 15-month date, it's not compelling. So my view is that you have to have more to lose by cheating than not. And that's the only thing that will keep you on the straight and narrow. Now, I may just be speaking for myself.
You get threatened, not sweets, but like a whip.
A whip. Okay.
Well,
Noted.
Unfortunately, I'm married to dominatrix.
Oh,
Unfortunately, or fortunately.
That's the key.
Okay, look for dominatrix women around Luca. How about you, Dr. Margie? What do you think?
Jeremy, let me just take off from what he said. Jeremy calls it the fear factor. Okay, but you have to believe it, meaning there are so many women. Of course, we're not talking about you, Luca, because we don't know, really what's inside you. So we're just talking in general, right? Like,
right.
It's possible to keep men from cheating. And even if you don't do it like you want to say don't, if the man knows really that you will leave him if he cheats, because you don't believe that he should do that, because not only because he put his penis in another woman's vagina, but it shows, a complete lack of respect, and etc. etc. Now, if the man knows for sure that the woman will do it, kaya niyang gawin. She has the resources, especially the inner resources, but unfortunately, to be realistic, also the financial resources to leave him. I think he will think twice if he loves her, because there are some men who pray that the women will leave them, because if she does, then you don't have to give such a big alimony, etc., etc., etc. But it's like men have a feral instinct. They can smell it. If the woman is just threatening and doesn't mean it, many women say, if you fool around, I will leave you. But men know that that's not true. Either because they don't have the financial resources, they don't have the inner resources, that they mind if women say, separada lang yan or whatever, you know. But men can tell. So what do you do? The first time he fools around, you cry or you threaten. The next time he fools around, you cry more buckets of tears, more threats. There's a principle in family therapy, remember? Oh, if you do something once and it doesn't work, doing more of the same thing, crying more loudly, etc., will not work. It's like foreigners who talk English to us and we don't understand. Then they think if they talk more loudly, oh, don't get me on this. I have very strong feelings about sex and racism towards Filipinas and Filipinos. They think if they talk more slowly and louder, they think a Filipino will understand. Well, that's bullshit. This is like family therapy. Doing more of the same thing, talking more slowly or speaking more loudly, will not mean the Filipino will understand you. He just might get more nervous. And it's like a woman who cries more and threatens more, but the man won't do it. But the man knows she won't do it. So what's the use?
Yeah.
So Dr. Holmes, what's an effective way to get your point across that, hoy, stop it, keep it in your pants? What's like a good way to get that message across?
Not like that, Shari.
Jeremy, what's an effective
Yeah,
way?
Jeremy, tell us, how do we like stop the cheating?
If you're a woman who's prepared to tolerate it once,
Yeah.
give him another chance, then you say, next time I'm out of here. And when he does it the second time, you got to leave, because otherwise it's useless.
So you just have to stick to your word. That's it. When you say
Well,
out,
you have to be firm in your own mind of
Yeah.
what your game plan is.
Yes.
And I think if you're really, really resolute, that may penetrate the thick skull of the Neanderthal that you're married to. And if, as my wife said, if he really loves you, then he'll stay and he'll behave. But if he doesn't really love you, then, game over.
So I think there's two sides to what you were sharing. Was like on Luca's side, like I think the question here is like he's cheated only once on someone. Luca, I think what Jeremy was saying was really profound. On like you won't cheat again if you feel like in your relationship there's a lot to lose. But until you find you're in dating people and you don't feel like there's something to lose, then you will possibly find
flip
someone
again.
else. But yeah, I don't.
This is presuming that the woman doesn't want you to cheat, right? Because there are some women who don't care. I mean, they might care, but not that much. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to put that point in. Don't you think, darling?
Yeah.
Well, there are tons of women who are happy if you give them a credit card and a nice house and good education for the children and all the rest of those nice things. And if the price of that is that you fool around, they might even be happy.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Because, sorry to say, but not all men are great lovers.
Okay.
Are happy to be left alone. Yeah.
Not by
Now, what they do with their spare time is another matter.
But in addition to that, I think it's not just women who don't mind you being unfaithful as long as you give them all the accoutrements of being a wife, credit card, support them financially, etc., etc. There may be women who say, I mean, I love you, you love me, we'll stay by the kids, but let's have an open marriage because monogamy is impossible. I mean, there are not as many men as women, or but I think that's another thing one has to take into account. Don't you think so?
Yeah, and I think there are other people who just aren't that interested in sex.
Oh, so
Oh, okay, yeah. So
sexuals, you mean?
Well, not that, yeah, but close to that end of the scale. Yes.
So what do you mean? So they feel that since they can't give the kind of sex their partner wants, they're ready for them to not fool around. They're ready for them to
give
have
permission.
someone else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yes.
Mm. So, Luca, did we answer your question, or
I
did we
don't
help
think
you
so.
out?
Poor Luca.
Oh no. You know what? This doesn't hinder me from like dating or having been in other relationships. It just every now and then it surfaces into this, like damn, like how am I going to find? Because I do fantasize about that old kind of love, that really like you're the one and only. This is soul food, this is good. And again, it happened once, and all those myths that you were listing out, it's like that's the type of stuff that scares me. And so when that memory surfaces and you got all these men in the Philippines, father figures still cheating, it really makes it like, is this shit impossible today? Like, was I just not born in the right era? That's the part that really stumps me. You know what I mean? Because I want to be that full-on romantic, but it's just like there's, I don't know.
We feel
It's just,
you. We feel
the
you.
environment's a little blurry. There's no clear-cut guideline for us 30s. So
I think that's a good point that Luca said, because I really think age is a contributing factor. I mean, we know about this. I mean, we were rabid. What? Infidels. I mean, we were not quite the most faithful in our previous marriages. But we were talking about this, right? And we said that we think our being older helped us become, I was 52, you were 57. It was a little easier to be faithful. I think you were spot on when you say maybe 30. It's much, and generally, there are many exceptions to the rule, but generally, it is easier for a man to be faithful in his 50s, what would you say, than when he's 30. And I know for myself, it's true.
So I need to date people at 50s.
I know.
No.
I need to change. I need to change
That's
my
the moral of the
profile.
50 to above. That is the.
No, I want to be extra sure. I'll be like 60 to 80. That's my market now.
Yeah, I'd go for the high end.
80s.
70 to 90.
You won't be around very long, and you inherit everything.
Okay, so Luca, when you
loyal.
get
Yes.
to 80, you'll be fine. Just basically that's what we're saying to you. But thank you so much for sharing your story. I mean, we did go. What this shows you is infidelity is so complicated. There's so much things that happen in a relationship that whether you're one-time cheater or someone who does it quite frequently, it's complicated. You just have to be more self-aware. But thank you for sharing your story, Luca.
Yeah, many
yeah,
things.
and thank you. I appreciate all of you so much. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Maybe you can show your face next time so they can see how handsome you are.
Yes, we wish you luck and we wish you many successful dates, really.
Yes.
Much
Many
appreciated. Yeah.
successful dates. Thanks again, Luca.
Take care.
you.
Happy dating.
night.
Don't lose hope.
So, Dr. Holmes, you have a few other questions. Based on what you've heard, what are the most common reasons that people actually cheat? Like, if you could name like a top 3, other than I guess the sex isn't good, what else is there?
I think probably the major thing is novelty. Men seem to be driven by a desire for novelty. And as my wife often says, the least imaginative of them cheat. There are many ways of keeping
I like that.
and I think the other thing is you cheat if you can.
Because
You
it's
know, if the
possible.
opportunity is there, and you get away with it, or good. Depends on the condition of your marriage. Depends whether you spend 20 weeks of the year traveling, all this sort of stuff. There are many variables.
Hmm.
How about you, Dr. Margie? Like, what do you think are the reasons?
Yeah, I was trying to remind him, but what? We're going to write a column a little bit about that in next week's Rappler or this Sunday's Rappler. So that's why he doesn't want to mention it. Surprise!
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll link it.
the need for novelty exists in both men and women, but sometimes, somehow, some men, the least imaginative, say the need for novelty has to do with another woman. It's, even if you have steak every week, which I find such a weak and lame excuse, sometimes you need hamburger. It doesn't make the woman feel good that your steak and the other woman is hamburger, right?
Yeah.
I'm the steak. I'm the steak. The other one's a hamburger. Let's be clear.
I know, right?
I'm not some minced meat.
You're a burger machine. I'm like,
Yeah, right? It's, tell me another one.
Yeah.
So I really feel that, it's not a good excuse. And men who use that excuse, there are so many ways. You can skydive, you can, whatever. I just want to share with you before you talk, a European study that said that men have to find their marriage very, very, very happy before they don't cheat. Whereas women have to find their marriage very, very, very unhappy before they consider cheating.
He agrees. It's like, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I think you're impressed.
It's true. Really?
And I think you have to consider the cultural aspect. If you grow up in a society where cheating is normal, like perhaps here, so
Yes.
I spent a lot of time in Latin America, and cheating in Latin America is endemic. In fact,
Tell that story.
yeah, I had some doubts about my first marriage, doubts which were subsequently seen to be very sensible. But I was told by my best man on the night before the wedding, he said, "Don't worry, she's very nice and you can always cheat." And so this was sort of the encouraging speech before the wedding.
Wow.
I think, therefore, if this is the way you're brought up, everybody around you is doing this, quite difficult, to follow a different path, unless, you've got some really strong sense of, I don't know, religion, or whatever it may be. Yeah. But religion matters. But, if you, I don't like to say this, but if you look at what's been happening in the Roman Catholic Church.
This is his hobby home, the Roman Catholic Church. Darling.
Perhaps, the morals of the church are not the best to lead you.
I agree. I'm on the same boat.
Sometimes, yeah.
It seems to be a belief, and unfortunately, in my clinical experience, it seems like men can compartmentalize love and sex far more easily than women can. Okay? So they'll say, "What's she complaining about? Blah, blah. After all, I go home to her, she gets my salary, blah, blah, blah." However, the other interesting thing is, if you maybe look at your friends, and certainly the research shows, and yet men are more jealous. So women seem to be able to forgive more, whereas men, if they find out their wife is fooling around, they're more likely to marriage. Do you find that in your experience, your friends or
I wonder whether that's
men?
I wonder whether that's a function
Well,
of the subordinate position of women,
Oh, very interesting.
in the
Yeah.
sense that it's much more difficult for a woman to leave, take the children, go and make a new life for herself in many countries. I mean, in the West, things may be different, but say here,
Yeah.
there's no. First of all, there's no divorce.
Yeah.
There's very little protection for a woman who wants to leave her husband, etc., etc. So, you've got to be a pretty strong-willed woman to take action in this country, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, I feel like this conversation of ours is like the perfect intro to this anonymous letter that I have.
Yes.
Okay. It's a bit long, but I'll go through it quickly. And I do really, really want to hear what you think. So, dear Thirsty and 30, I'm in my 50s, and I can say that I'm probably one of the unluckiest women in the world to have witnessed cheating all my life. When we were in grade school, my dad would bring us to school every day. There were numerous times when he would pick up a woman, usually a college student, from the bus stop and drop her off somewhere near our school. So it would be him, his kids, and a mistress all in one car. That time we were all under the age of 10. So we had no idea what that all meant. This would go on intermittently for years, but none of us ever mentioned anything to our mom. For as long as I can remember, I think our dad told our young minds that we shouldn't tell our mother. Fast forward to when we were in high school, my mom would get anonymous phone calls telling her that her husband is cheating on her and that his mistress is his secretary. My mom never checked on him, never. We would sometimes hear her tell my dad, "Alam ko, hindi santo mga lalaki. Nagde-date siguro kapag wala na sa bahay, pero wag ka lang mag-anak sa labas." Sorry, Jeremy, do you speak in Tagalog?
I prefer Dutch.
Oh. Let me translate.
You understand.
You could.
Do I have to translate that part?
No,
Um,
carry on.
Tell him.
Okay.
Right?
So fast forward again to my 20s, my dad told me and my siblings that he has a 2-year-old love child and that he wants us to meet her. We were all so surprised, but back then we didn't have the courage to get mad at him. He forced us to meet up with her regularly from then on, threatening that if we do not, and if we tell our mom, he would disinherit us and give everything to his child. We were hurt, furious, and felt incredible pity for our mother, who was either clueless about the whole thing or turned a blind eye from the truth. Years later, she eventually found out about the love child. She confronted my dad, but it was him who ended up furious and threatened to leave her. You know what my mom decided to do? She told my dad that his child can join us for our Sunday family lunches. Unfortunately, his child was evil. Every time she was with us, she would somehow stir up a fight that would make my dad furious at my mom or his grandkids who were around the same age as his kid. This led to my mom deciding that his child cannot come over anymore. He fumed at this decision and only came to his senses when a friend of his convinced him to stop forcing his wife to accept his love child. So now, fast forward to the day, in his 80s and during this pandemic, he refuses to stop sleeping around. It was just recently that they started sleeping in separate rooms because we told her to, for fear that he might infect her with COVID-19, because he still continues his habitual pattern of sleeping with different women. Sorry for the long letter, but citing specifics will give a better picture of what my family has gone through all these years. So my question is, why did my mom put up with this for over 40 years? Why didn't she leave him early on? Why is it acceptable for her that men womanize but just not have a love child? And why hasn't my father stopped and have had any realizations at his age?
So many
So-
whys.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would suggest that the mother had very few resources with which to leave.
Hmm.
And, I mean, given the way he threatened to disinherit everybody, I would think that he would have made life extremely difficult for her. He wouldn't have said, I'll buy you a house in Alabang and I give you credit cards and all the rest of 15 trips a year to the United States. So there'll be that. And the result of that, of course, is if she turns a blind eye, why should he stop? He's having a good time, and there's no reason to stop. If for 80 years he hasn't realized that his behavior is unacceptable, it's extremely unlikely that he's going to become more cognizant of his behavior now.
I do like that word. That's a very good word.
Unless the proverbial thunderbolt strikes him. Let's say he has a stroke and he becomes a believer, which happens a lot, particularly to people who are at the end of their life. When you can see that there is no light at the end of the tunnel, then you start to sober up a little and decide whether your behavior is quite what it will take to find the key to the pearly gates. So I mean, that's what I think. We, of course, knowing the woman or their financial situation at all.
I think I have heard a lot of instances. I have heard of one though. Speaking of what Jeremy said, like he would say, "God will forgive." So I think in his head, he's also a cheater. God will always forgive. So his game plan is that the last second somehow he's gonna be able to say sorry, and then he will forgive. Some men.
That's, I would say, not a very sophisticated reading of the Lord's word.
Yeah, definitely not. It's not an excuse to.
When I heard that, I was like, what?
It's almost time to go, right? You're 9 to 10. We have a long distance call. But I also wanted to tell the letter writer, of course, our heart goes out to her. But then we really don't know any of the other people involved. We've only heard her side of the story. So, if we were, really ethical and professionals, which you never claimed to be, so you can be an ethical layman, we wouldn't try to second guess them or try to psychoanalyze them. However, maybe it might be better for her to just look at her own life in the sense that, our childhood has such a great impact on us. And maybe if, she could go, not, maybe to therapy or not even therapy, just try to understand so that she doesn't make the same mistakes, so that she doesn't end up with a man and she feels she has to forgive him because if not, she hasn't followed her mother's forgiving nature, or on the other hand, be so quick to leave a man who may have, strayed once because she doesn't want to be like her mother at all. She can love them both or hate them both or one or the other. I don't want you to accuse me of a false dichotomy, but just make sure that her life is her own, if she can. In her 50s, maybe, it's time. I mean, I know it's hard, but it's time to not spend all your energy trying to understand your parents' selfish or not so brilliant decisions, and just make sure that you make better decisions for your own life. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's all too easy for us either to learn nothing from our pasts, or to take the other view, which is that everything my parents did, I'm going to do the opposite. Which, again, isn't, not very clever sometimes.
This is one question I have in terms of children and, let's say, a father that cheats. Is it genetic? I think Shari's been wanting to know this.
I've been wanting to ask
Is
that question.
this genetic?
It's genetic.
I've never heard of it being genetic. But
Okay.
Later on, when diagnostic tools in psychology or neuroscience get better and better, we may find that some genetics is involved. After all, isn't there the prairie vole and something else? And one of the kinds of moles are faithful for life and the other kind is not. So there must be something genetic. However, as you say, I think environmental factors at least at this point, from what the research shows, etc., environmental factors, including the culture, is a very big determining factor.
So peer pressure is a
It's an
thing
environmental factor.
for
Yes,
sure. Yeah.
yes.
In this specific situation, how do you stop it? Let's say, because I've been also in a situation where I've been cheated on for 10 years. And it was very different. The first time it was like there was a hidden dating profile. And then after a while, it was just like an accepted thing because I had different wants. This person had different wants. And maybe I was too weak to accept that it was not a good relationship. And I thought it was a reflection that it's a failure. So I think sometimes women stay because they don't want it to be a reflection of themselves, that it's a failure. So my question is, if it drags on, how do you stop it? Like you said, do you just like say, okay, I'm going to leave and actually leave and bring the children? Is there other ways? Because I didn't have a child when in my specific, I had no one to drag but like a pillow. So, but in a situation where there are kids or no kids, how do you stop a prolonged cheating?
First of all, I don't think you should spend your energy trying to stop it, because what you're doing is trying to control his behavior. And the only person's behavior that you can control is your own. Right? What are you going to do if I threaten him or if I bribe him? This is so important to remember that the only person's behavior you can change is your own. So in family therapy, they talk about how family is a system. So it's homeostatic, right? You carry on this way. He cheats and you find a way to deal with it. But once there is a change, the other person will also change to keep that balance that you have. So I don't know what it is. If you say, look, I've had enough, I want to leave, he has to do something to keep the balance. I don't know what it is. Beg you to stay because he loves you, beg you. There's just one little story I want to tell. Is it okay with your director? But anyway,
Of course, we extend as long as, don't
Go
worry.
ahead. Really?
Wrong answer.
Yes. No, but anyway, remember that letter? We had 2 letter writers, and we could only answer one because it was the same type of letter, where she said the same, like the story of this lady, that her husband had a love child, and she accepted the love child, and he promised he would never do it again. But 3 years later, he did the same thing. And she said, but I cannot leave him because he says he loves me so much.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that line.
Can that be true? Can that be true, Dr. Holmes?
Here's the number one line I used to hear. I would never leave you. I would never love her more than I love you. I was like, really? Really?
Yeah.
'Cause-
Then why do you cheat on me and not on her?
Exactly.
No, but I always say, who defines love? Maybe you're right. Maybe he loves you. But is this the kind of love you want? Or are you settling? My feeling. And then
Yeah, it's very much the case of defining what love means for you
yes, for you.
and for your spouse.
Mm.
And if they don't coincide sufficiently, then there's a problem. And if you can, you leave. The greater problem, of course, is if you can't leave, and 2,000 to 3,000 years of history are full of people who've not been able to leave, and they've been very unhappy, and they've gone to their graves unhappy.
I'm curious about from the two of you, what does love mean? Because you mentioned that, and it's all we ever really want. Like, this is why we started
That's
the
the
show.
main goal of this show, to find love.
No, not to be lonely, but like I guess what does love mean?
I think that we've touched on this. It's steak every day.
Steak every day. No burgers on the side.
I'll just quote Eric Fromm, and I think it's beautiful, and I think love is mature love. Eric Fromm once said, what did he say? Oh, yeah. Immature love says, I love you because I need you. And mature love says, I need you because I love you. Isn't that beautiful? And maybe we can end on that so we
Yes, yes,
It's very.
of course.
Although, hold on, we do have just one last question. What is the best? Like, because we got this from a lot of people. What's your number one advice for men or women who got cheated on? How do they move on? What's the best way that they can just shake it off and live their life?
Hmm.
Well, I think
You don't-
you can't shake it off.
No.
It's like you have a car crash and you wake up in hospital and you're missing a leg. Well, you're not going to get it back. Then
Okay.
you move on, but you have to move on a bit more slowly.
Yes, and
Yeah.
maybe remember, it's grief. You feel grief, and maybe you can accept that, and we can talk about the 4 stages of grief, but we don't have time.
Don't have
But
that yet.
at the end of a relationship,
Yeah.
you grieve, no matter how terrible the relationship is, right, Bea?
I've been grieving. No, do I look like I'm grieving now? I think
No, not that. How long did you break up with him? No, but
it's messy.
10 years of your life, right?
Yeah,
And
you
gave
do.
it your all.
Yeah.
Of course, it makes sense to grieve. And I think sometimes if you pressure yourself to move on, or your friends pressure yourself to move on, they're not doing you a service. Yeah, they're not doing you a favor. It takes time. You accept it takes time, but maybe say yes to a couple of dates.
Okay, start with one and then go on to the next. It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Pleasure.
Margie and Jeremy. Like, you know
Jeremy.
what? I mean, I
Thank
love what
you.
you talk about love and all those. Like, I think you just put it out there and kind of punch me in the face in a good way. In a good way. Sometimes you need to be punched and slapped in the face, right? Like you said, fear is a good factor. But Sherry, how about you? Before we say goodbye to our
Um,
favorite guest.
I like the last line, the immature love and mature love. That's like an important thing to just
Yeah.
ingrain in our heads. Start looking for mature love and pray.
Put it on your forehead.
Good
Pray
luck on
and
the
hope for
prayer.
the best.
Thank you for making the time. I understand you both so busy, and we are, you know what? Hopefully, we have some success stories to share to you in a
I
couple
hope
months.
so.
We hope we have the love you both have, and we're really grateful. But
We appreciate all the input that you gave us. We really did learn, and I hope we helped you guys, the cheaters and the cheated on. I hope we helped with our professionals. And Bea, your excitement was through the roof.
I know.
Anyway,
But
thank you.
thank you so much.
Yes.
We will wrap
Thank
up also,
you.
but
Thank you.
bye
You
bye.
guys, yeah. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Take
you.
care. Sherry, my gosh. What's your takeaway? That was like such a whirlwind of realization, right? Today.
Um, you know what? My takeaway is honestly, um, I don't know. I'm overwhelmed. There was like so much information to take.
I
And
felt like an encyclopedia like fell on my head.
I'm
Like
gonna have
honestly, that's
to. I'm curious, like to our audience out there, what did you guys learn, or do you guys have more questions? It's kind of nuts, but okay, Bea, let's start with you. What's your takeaway? Because you are actually experienced in this.
you know what? Number one is the fear factor. I think that's so important. If there's something to lose, if you're a woman that just agrees to it and just like takes the, doesn't look at what's happening, he will just continuously do it to you.
Yeah.
Oh, there people said this was great. Thank you so much. But the main thing is there has to be a fear factor. Number two, search for mature love. And number three, know what real love is. Because if it's not real love, then you will cheat on each other and there's no hope. But I do believe in hope after I saw them.
Yeah. And I also like what she said. I guess my main takeaway is like, okay, it could be love. This person's cheating on you, but is it the love that you deserve, or is it the love that you want? I think we should leave our audience at that.
Yes.
Thank you everybody for watching. Next week, Bea, what do we have next week? It's fun, right?
Yeah, so next week, yeah, do you want to run through it or do you want me to be just as excited as I am about infidelity?
Uh, okay, you take a breath. Okay, so for our episode next Wednesday, Bea is a big fan of this also. I'm just kidding. We were inspired. We were inspired by Emily in Paris and the phrase "le petit mort." Is that how you
Yes.
pronounce it? Which is all about orgasms. It translates to the little death. We will discuss those who have never experienced it and those who have, and how to get the most out of it.
Yes. So please do. I mean, if you guys have other questions about cheating and orgasms, or if there are other wholesome topics you want to talk about, we're also open to that. Except this is, towards the end of the year, we have to leave with a bang.
Yes.
Um, so I hope you were just as excited as I was today. And you know what? People are quiet. I think they were scared to be judged about infidelity. But if you have questions, please do message us secretly
And
about
please do click subscribe here or there. One of the
it. So
um,
yeah, there.
thank you everybody for watching. Stay thirsty, and I guess we'll see you again next week at 9 p.m. on Wednesday. Bea, thanks again.
For my Red Bull situation. But
Next,
yeah,
next week, take a melatonin.
so sorry guys, but I really am I'm very hopeful.
No, Bea,
Thank you.
it
Vote.
was nice. I loved your
vote.
energy today.
All right, see you next Wednesday.
Bye, guys.
Thirsty
Thank you.
and 30.
Bye.